Well, what's up, Kenya? My name's Mark Pollard. I teach strategy around the world. I've worked in Sydney, Australia, and New York in the USA. I published a book called Strategy Is Your Words. And little known fact, I set up the first full-color hip-hop magazine in the Southern Hemisphere, and I'm happy to be in your heads today.
Mark, it's so good to have you here on Boxpod Tv.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
We've been talking about this since what, November?
At least November. I was here to do an event, came back for Christmas, enjoyed it, still here.
Yeah, I hear Kenya has that bag that once you come here and tell me one thing that you're like, when I go, I'm going to miss this about Kenya.
The nightlife.
What?
The nightlife's been really interesting. There's good restaurants. There's more nightlife than I expected.
Yeah.
Because for me, I'm comparing this to my other places like Brazil and Colombia. And so, yeah, I didn't expect the nightlife to be what it is. It hasn't been too much for me to do during the day, but at the night, it's great. Very friendly people. People go out.
I don't know if you heard what he said, guys. He said, there's not too much to do during the day.
There's not too much to do here.
I feel like, especially for adults, right?
I would say not just for adults.
No, for kids, for families, there's always something to do, right? You'll find the malls are catered for, right? The other day, I mean, I don't have kids, so I kind of hate going to places where there's family. Does that make sense?
It does. Also, I don't like spending time in malls. Every mall is the same, and a lot of cities around the world are kind of becoming the same. They're all designed by the same people. So sometimes I travel, I'm like, I could be anywhere right now. Yeah. You know.
So I want to get. So the reason why we're having this conversation is we said we're going to use your story and in turn also my story to be able to help people.
I love it.
Come up with strategy for 2026 and see, because strategy is at the center of everything we do. So you started off in Australia,
I did.
But like you ended up in New York.
I did.
And now you're a world citizen. Start from the beginning.
I get around.
You get around.
Yeah. I just stay where people want me and I leave when they don't want me. Yeah.
So where did you get started?
Well, in my teens, the internet became a thing. So this is before social media. We had things like IRC, Internet Relay Chat, ICQ. It was like, you're probably downloading internet at 14 kilobytes per second, maybe even less. And so I spent a lot of time on the internet and I started to make websites publishing interviews with my favorite rappers and graffiti artists. So I was 19 or so doing that. At the same time on the side, I was doing dance parties. In Sydney, we call them Asian dance parties because a lot of my friends in Sydney are from Asia. I ended up getting extorted by one of the main heroin gangs in the world when I was 19.
Wow.
What's up? But from a young age, I was always trying to do stuff. I was a writer, but I would like buy football cards in those packages and sell them separately to try to make a little bit more money. And sort of was always trying to be active and was battling two other dynamics that I think people could identify with now. One is a sense of nihilism. Just as a teenager and even in my 20s, I was like, fuck this system, fuck this world. I don't like this. I don't belong in this. I don't want to have a corporate job and wear the same clothes and have the same haircut as everyone. So I had that, but I also had a need to express. And luckily I found ways, including by taking a lot of risks, where I could build a life where now that's essentially what I do full time.
Wow. Do you know, it's interesting you call it nihilism because now I have a word to put it, to give it, because when I was, when I cleared high school, you know, at that point where you're now supposed to be starting the journey of life, getting to university, do that course, I quickly realized, I think at the age of 13, that I don't think I want to do these things that adults look very, and it was my dad. My dad always looked depressed on Mondays, right? He had no personality on the weekday, but weekends he is back, you know? Yeah. So I already knew that I don't do any of this. And then also, I mean, I'm a millennial. People started working. Skirt suits were a thing. Yeah. I knew I was never going to be in corporate life. Fuck that. The outfits were just they were not for me. But yeah, so at that point I started, you know, I was very lucky. My parents are, you know, they're not those ones who are like, you have to do this. Them, they're just like, we trust you. Go get it, right? And I went out and I did all sorts of things simply because I was like, you know what? We're going to try. At that time, in hindsight, I necessarily didn't have hindsight, but I was willing to try stuff because how society had positioned things were, I didn't see myself in that.
Well, I mean, there's two things in that mindset. One is just not being happy with the status quo and the options that are in front of you. That's one. And then you had an appetite for risk.
Yeah.
Some people have the first but they don't have an appetite for risk. There's a really good book that's worth reading, at least a summary of, called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And it's Robert Kiyosaki, and he talks about his dad being the poor dad, who's an academic, just wanted tenure, wanted to have like salary coming in, just play a really small game in life. His rich dad was his friend's dad. And his rich dad owned shit, including a supermarket. And so when they were teenagers, he and his friend went to his friend's dad and said, we want to be rich. The dad said, go work in my supermarket. They did it for a day or two. Then they tell the rich dad, we don't like that. And he goes, that's your first lesson. And so there has to be, if there's something rebellious about you, you still have to find something positive and constructive to do with it, because otherwise you're just going to spin around and probably make a lifetime of bad decisions.
And that's true. And that's true. I see a lot of young people in a country like Kenya right now. Well, where I was at that time, there was still not enough jobs. And now it's even worse, right? You have a lot of young people who are reaching that place where they're like, this is not serving me. And as somebody who's hired Gen Z, I can tell you, Gen Z don't have the knack for suffering, which I'm very proud of. The fact that they don't like to suffer, if you're not hiring them.
It's cute if you're not. There's a piece of research that came out. I think it's largely to do with the USA, saying that the younger generation right now in their 20s is the least conscientious generation measured, and that's a problem. I'm not conservative, but that's a problem, because conscientiousness helps you succeed.
Yes,
like it's how you succeed.
Yeah, it's what reminds you to, even if I'm not liking what I'm doing right now, but I'm doing it for the future. Like I just gotta I'm gonna get to this point. They're just
Sacrifice.
like, nah,
Sacrifice.
refresh game.
Yeah.
let's find a new game to play, right? And so a lot of with from my experience of working with Gen Z, compared to employing a millennial will suffer it out, but a Gen Z will wake up today and tell you that the reason they're not coming for this shoot is that their mental health is. And now, this morning, where we had planned together that we are all supposed to be here, so that a lot of young people are choosing to go out, right? Now, let's talk being, if you don't want to follow conventional, then you have to map your own. Which one is easier? Isn't it easier to use conventional, especially if you don't have conscientiousness?
Well, look, I think there's an argument to say follow some conventional paths when you're starting out, try to earn some money, get some skills. But also, people have access to more tools and more people than ever before in human history.
True.
So you could create a business. But if you have no idea what you're doing and you don't want to spend time learning, then you're just going to be complaining about it all the time. So I think it's like in my 20s, I was publishing this hip hop magazine. I would sometimes sleep in the office of places that I was working at. Sometimes I was working there part-time in advertising. But also, I still worked at my day job of advertising in a way that I took seriously. Like, I was competitive. I didn't want to do bad work. That's just not good. Why turn up every day? And so that was the mindset that I grew up with. And so, I think it's okay to do some conventional stuff, learn what you're about, get some access to people. You know, there's a whole bunch of stuff, because there's a whole bunch of problems happening right now. One is a lot of people don't have faith in their own countries, in their own governments. Two, they don't have a lot of belief in the fact that they could achieve something because it's so freaking hard. A lot of countries have set up systems, we'll call them systems, and bureaucracies that get in the way of their own people. I met a lot of people in Africa, but definitely in Kenya, who are kind of living hour by hour. Maybe they're selling hair, they're doing makeup, they're doing beauty, whatever it is. It's really hard for them to think bigger and then to work out how to achieve the thing that they're thinking about. So they're not even thinking with a bigger vision, but they're not sure how to go about it because they're just focused on how to sell their hair that day or how to do some kind of makeup treatment that day. So there's a lot of sort of short-term thinking, which happens when you're in survival mode. So there's just a whole bunch of stuff happening right now. So
how does someone then strategize? You're in survival mode, but then how then do I plan? Because, like, for example, one of the biggest arguments on saving is I got nothing to save. I am just moving from hand to mouth. I work in a quarry. You know, I've picked bricks for the day. I've made maybe 500 or 1,000. I don't know. Or I'm a taxi driver. How am I supposed to strategize mid, long term and short term?
It's hard without seeing specific numbers. I've also met people here who are professionals and they don't believe in banks, so they don't have a bank. They just don't believe that the bank will stick around, right? So I think at some point governments need to be able to come in and help to provide a vision for a country. I know there's a lot of creative talent here. One of my favorite quotes, I don't know where it comes from, is that talent is evenly distributed, but opportunity is not.
That's true.
And I see it everywhere. But there still need to be systems in place. There needs to be a sense of predictability. It's difficult if you think you're building something and all of a sudden you've got to pay people money that you didn't expect to pay so that something gets approved quickly, for example. You know what I'm talking about? And so these things will get in the way of a population. And at some point, the population's not happy with that.
Nope. So how does this lady who's doing hairdressing, if let's use an example of a hairdresser, right? Because there are a lot of people, especially in informal job market, that are looking to be like 2026, I'm going to do this, but I hope that in 2 years' time to transition to something else. How does someone start preparing for that?
So it depends on the something else. And also, whatever I say, I can't speak specifically to every situation.
Yeah,
like
sure.
if someone's just in super survival mode and they've got a situation where they haven't been paid in 2 months, what I'm saying is not useful. But strategy, and we don't have to make it a complicated discussion, strategy is about knowing where you want to go. So if you're a hairdresser and you want to own a salon, or you're a hairdresser, but you don't want to work with 50 people a week, you want to make it 20, but you want to make sure that they're paying you well, you have to start by articulating what you're trying to move towards. Because if you don't have a point of view of where you're trying to move towards, you don't need strategy. You're just going to be stuck in the same place.
In the same loop.
So I think that's important. And then the stuff that's not even about strategy is you need to surround yourself with people who get it and who want that. And often what I hear in a lot of countries is sometimes families hold us back. They don't agree with that vision. They don't think you should be so arrogant. They don't think you should have so much optimism about yourself. You should take an easier option that they relate to because they had to do that for their family.
Yeah.
So that's not even really like a strategy thing. You could call it a tactic if we want to be a little bit nerdy. And then I think, if you're in like a small business, you have to understand your money in a way where it helps to think about things that you can sell for more money. Because you have two options.
And that's the truth.
You have two options. You sell more things, which you can't if you're doing makeup because it's you.
Yeah.
Maybe you can. Maybe you can work with 50 people a week and you'll be exhausted. Or you sell to fewer people but for more money. So there's just a few decisions that you need to make before you even get into like some kind of big strategy.
That's true, man. And I know that when you're planning, especially in the beginning of the year, these are the things, someone is like, this year, I'm going to do it bigger. But then using the same steps that were used last year, that nothing's changing, probably even working harder. But then, and let's talk about hard work, right? Because a lot of people, in our education system, there was a whole conversation around, working hard, right? Working hard. So I think part of working hard is not having good strategy. And so it leaves, you like the example you've just given, you can sell to 50 people, right? Or you can sell to fewer people and make more money. But that's where we find ourselves. All right. So 2026, year starting off, one of the key things I've seen everywhere is like, I don't know whether it's now becoming like, cool language, but I like this conversation. It's around starting to frame your mind, right? Even just yesterday, I saw a post of a guy who said he changed the way he was looking at himself last year, and that helped him lose weight. Yeah. That he started not looking at himself like, oh, this is something that is shameful. He switched his mindset about making it just something he must achieve. And then the guy's so ripped. I was even asking him, like, are you single? Yeah. But so he did so good, right? Yeah. How important is framing of mind, especially for a young person?
It's super. It's a really common thing in psychology to work out the story that you're telling yourself, and then to work out how to switch that story for a different kind of story. Yeah. In my 20s, I was a workaholic, and I was a workaholic as a little bit of like an act of self-harm. I would work until 5 a.m. I would grind myself into the dirt. I would end up depressed after I published a magazine. And at some point I thought maybe I'm just going to obliterate myself, and that would be an easy way out of the feelings that I had growing up. So I had to change my mentality and reestablish a slightly healthier connection with work. And I've been doing that in my own life as well. And sometimes it just takes time. So when it comes to frame of mind or mindset, the first is, what story are you telling about yourself? And connected to that is, where do I want to go? What's my vision? Vision's just a big word for the question, where do I see myself in the future? Connected to that is, am I prepared to sacrifice for it and work hard? Because if you're not, you're just talking.
Yeah.
You're just talking. I've been around the music industry, advertising industry, creative industries. I've heard a lot of talk. Right?
And you're so right, especially about talking and how important strategy is, because like there's so many people I see. Let me talk about an industry that I'm very, I see musicians who you've got the right product, right? This song, shit, you got talent, like you're going places, but that's all.
Yeah.
They now then bring the song and try to give it to radio stations. And that's when you realize, oh, snap. I can tell that even 5 years from now, you're still going to be doing the exact same thing because you're not making a plan.
They're not understanding the game. So I worked with people like that too, or knew people like that, where they thought the game was to finish an album or an EP. And they're like, okay, why isn't it getting played? Why aren't I famous right now? You have to understand the game that you're playing. And in the creative industries, making the thing is a small part of the game. It's part of it, but it's small. It's your access to networks. It's your personal presence online. It's whether you're in clubs all the time performing or whatever genre you're in. It's the grind. Right? Even if the Beatles did thousands of shows, I think in Germany and places, before they went back to the UK and became the Beatles. They were grinding it out. These stories are really, really common. And so, you've got to be able to put in the work. And then you have to try to understand the game, as in like what is happening in the industry or the category that I'm in that helps people be successful.
And that's so important because I think if you are not able to understand what it is that you're getting yourself into, then you're not making an informed decision.
You're not.
Right? Because I'll tell you this, I've worked with musicians, I've worked with over 1,000 one-on-one, right? And I can tell you out of those 1,000, there's some people who I meet in the banking. And I used to get so mad because I'm like, you wasted my goddamn time. But then I had a different thinking sometime last year because I was like, wait, it means that this person, you had a vision. You're like, I can sing, right? And just because you can sing doesn't mean you can be a pop star.
No.
It doesn't mean, because you have to understand everything that it entails, and then sit down and ask yourself, are you willing to go that extra mile to get, to one point? And if the answer then says, nah, then I can sing for fun.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So what you have is a lot of people who get into the space, right? And then start asking themselves, why aren't I making it? I'm like, did you understand the game first before you got in?
Well, the flip side of that is what happens in the K-pop industry, where they'll sign you to a 7-year contract and you're working every single day. They will monitor all of your relationships. You are grinding. You're part of the system. That's an extreme opposite version. But if you're in the music industry, it's kind of nice to know that that's how people in Korea are working, because you could probably emulate it a little bit rather than just being cool, trying to rely on your personality on social media without putting in the grind, and also without like having a big concept around you, right? And so I think for people in small business, it's also really important not just to have this vision, but to approach everything with the discovery mindset, as in, you know what, I'm going to make some decisions that will work and some that won't. But I'm going to discover how much people will pay me for something. I'm going to discover which products and services they want from me. That's a multi-year, if not indefinite journey, where you're all constantly learning. And I think unless you have that mindset, you're going to see a small decision or a small mistake as a reason to stop. So for example, again, people dealing with hair, importing hair from, say, China, let's say they place an order and it's the most money that they've ever spent. And then the order gets delayed. And then they have to get it through customs. And then there are surprises with how much it costs to get through customs. And then they get the order and it's not good quality and there's some stuff missing. Yeah. That could destroy a person if they don't have the mentality.
Yeah. Oh, every time someone asks me about getting into entrepreneurship, I ask them, are you okay?
Yeah.
No, because
you have to not be okay.
No, you have to not be okay. You have to be willing to really put yourself through the grind. And especially when people don't even rate you. Let's talk about clients, right? And how to position yourself. We've spoken about framing. There's so many people who are so talented, right? And in this conversation, we're mostly talking about entrepreneurs. You've got something, you've got a product, you've got a service that you're trying to sell. And we'll talk about services because you're currently, last year did what, 40 cities?
Yeah.
Going around teaching people about stuff,
me.
right? And we'll talk about masterclasses and workshops,
Sure.
Here's a person who is well talented. They can make amazing things, right?
Yeah.
And then on the other side, there's somebody who is not talented. In fact, the product is not even. But this person is selling more than this person who has great talent, great selling. And you find it's the way they communicate about themselves. Like they don't see themselves as a brand that should be, because it's just like, I'm just doing this small thing. One of the things I completely hate is when someone tells me, this is a small thing I'm doing, right?
Yeah.
I hate that because I'm like, how am I supposed to look at, who tells you I want to interact with something small?
Yeah. I hate the word freelancer, by the way, because a lot of people in the gig economy are going to call themselves freelancer because they think it sounds cool. They see it on TikTok. People use the word freelance in like different, like I'm freelancing in English right now, just making it up kind of thing. Don't use that word. If you're going to be a business, be a business. And have people interact with you as a business. And if people try to interact with you as a freelancer or like you're a junior employee, you correct them. You say, no, I'm a business. I'm selling to you business to business. Second is you need to be easy to buy. I think a lot of young people, they spend a lot of time. I see this more in the US. A lot of young people call themselves multi-hyphenates. I'm so skilled and passionate and all these 10 things. I'm on multi-hyphenate. Stop making me do intellectual work. If I'm hiring you for a thing, it's one thing. I need my door fixed. I need my hair done. I need an ad campaign. If you're in a multi-hyphenate, that's great for your ego, but don't do it.
I'm a multi-hyphenate.
No, don't. I'll slap it out of you.
Wait, what?
It's not useful. People see us for one thing.
And that's true. That's so
right?
true. That's so true.
I get brought in, not just because I'm really funny, but for clarity. That's it. If I say I do these 10 other things, guess what? People are only buying one or two of the 10. So sometimes I think through our own ego, our own narcissism, we try to satisfy the fact that we're complex individuals, but we put that into the world in a way that confuses people. No one's thinking about us. Everyone's thinking about themselves. So help them buy you. Connected to that is if you're selling simple products and services, not big consulting stuff, but simple products and services, have a simple catalog and build that catalog around the psychology of the people that you're selling to or the need that you're selling to. So if you're doing hair and makeup, obviously you could sell wedding packages. You could sell CEO makeover packages. You could sell post-divorce makeover packages. So it's just working out how to be really easy to sell and to create products around the needs and the psychology of the people you're selling to. Connected to that, one little strategy technique for positioning is called for, only, because. For is your audience. So who do you want to sell to? Only is what you do differently. And because is like the proof point or the reason that you can put this argument together about how you're about what you do. So that's also something worth thinking about. A lot of people who are entrepreneurs and business people, they operate from a place of ego and they struggle to actually spend time listening to other people and bending what they do to what the actual needs are.
Damn, I think you're preaching today, man. You just woke up and said, we are going to just dismantle everything Kwambok's knows. No, but I like that because I promise you, especially, I find multi-hyphenates stem from, say, around millennials going into Gen Z. And that's because, look, and I'd like your thought on this because I was reading about this the other day. One of the biggest challenges with being a multi-hyphenate is I was growing up, I had lots of interests. And those interests are now things that people need, right? Where am I supposed to drop an interest, right? And say, now I'm going to focus on this. It makes it very difficult, especially for, I don't want to throw terms here, ADHD. It makes it very difficult to sort of say, I'm going to do just this one thing. But I understand what you've said. But then, so this... thinking was this person's thinking was, I can't remember the name of the channel, and they were saying have one that's the core, right? Like this is the one that feeds you, this is the one that is making the money, this is the one that has make it the core, right? And then because they can't all be at the same level. Like you can't be a multi-hyphenate with 10 different things at the same level, but you can staircase them that way. And the staircase is what in terms of also attention. There's one that has to get more attention than the others.
Yeah. But also it depends if there's a business context to this, because I think even with the multi-hyphenate thing, there's self-awareness, really useful. And then there's self-infatuation. And then there's a failure to pay attention to what the world is asking from us. So you want to have the self-awareness, how you understand yourself, connect to what the world is asking for you. And then you want to be easy to buy if you want to have a successful business. Otherwise, you're just stuck in like a narcissistic spiral
Loop
about how nuanced and special and amazing you are. I have a lot of interests. I bring them into what I do, but I'm not selling people all the things that I'm interested in. I'm selling them right now strategy classes. And the more that I add, the more confusing it gets. And I will be known as the strategy class guy because that's how people's brains work. They don't want to have to process the complexities of other people because they're stuck in their own brains.
That's so true. And, I think one of the biggest challenges with this conversation is that we see a lot of successful people.
Yeah.
Say, for example, like Ciara. She just popped up in my head. And I love Ciara. She's a great singer. She looks like she's enjoying marriage. She dances. She's an entrepreneur. She's doing all these random things. And I feel like if it wasn't for these celebrities and people that we follow and we see them being like how are you able to run? How are you running a restaurant and then you're doing so I think a lot of us then pick it from there. Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of us pick it from there. We're like, you know what? Just today I was showing guys, you see this? This is my brand. Right.
Oh, nice.
This is my outfit. I designed it. Right. It's my brand, Kapow. Right. This is my studio, Kapow Studios. Right. I'm running a YouTube channel. I love Boxpod TV. Right. We do production. We've got a kids talent search that's coming up at the end of the year. Then they're all under the umbrella of the studio. Right. And then when I step in the studio, there's other things we're doing. So it's like now you saying, hey, I don't want to, you can't participate in these things because you can only be one way.
So look, there's multi-hyphenate when you're dealing with your own identity. And then there's multi-hyphenate when you're selling. And also to compare you to someone who's driving in an Uber, and not fair, you have your empire, right? Now, the thing, if you want to think a little bit strategically, is you don't need to be strategic unless there's a problem to solve or there's something you're chasing. So if you say to me, you know what, I have this empire, it's complicated and I love it and there's no problems, great. There's nothing to solve, therefore continue.
Yeah.
But if you're like, you know what, part of it's not working as strong as I'd like it to, or another part could work better, then that's where we need to think about what we're doing. And sometimes the more messages, the more things we have in the world, it confuses people, and there's research on this. But if you're in an Uber or you're doing hair, you don't want to have 50 different things that you're trying to do. You want to allow the world to understand you in one single-minded way when you start. And over time, you can then branch out if you have to.
Love it. Okay, so we are clearly not, I like what you said. Because most of the time when you're doing many things, that's for sure. One of my biggest struggles is that I see myself in my head like Superman, when he's carrying the world. Yeah. Yeah. Why? Because...
Do you want to psychoanalyze this? Keep going.
Keep going. No, it's because I wake up and I'm like, the studio, yada, yada. I mean, you've just seen half the things I've had to deal with and it's not yet 10 in the morning, right? And then there is this other stuff that you're doing. And then there's this other stuff. It's like, if your brain, there are days where you feel like, okay, this is overwhelming. Chances are if I was doing one at a time, it would be so much easier. Right?
It could be, but you're going to have different problems. Like even with my events, we did an event in the Philippines where I'm going tonight, did an event in the Philippines 2 years ago. The president called a public holiday a week before the event that I was doing on the day I was doing the event. In other countries, I go there and all of a sudden they're asking for like a $3,000 event permit. I'm like, what the fuck? That's like our margin potentially if we're lucky.
Yeah.
And so you just get a different set of problems to deal with. And that's what I like. If you're an entrepreneur, there's this phrase that I love, which is, I don't have to, I get to. And I find being an entrepreneur running my own business, I don't complain that much. When I'm an employee, oh, the boss did this. I can't believe we have to pitch for this business. Oh, can't believe the department over there and what they did.
Yeah.
I don't have any of that stuff in my life right now.
Yeah.
Because when you're an entrepreneur, you have no choice but to take decisions and to act. And it's in the acting that you learn what people are responding to, what they're not responding to.
But Mark,
Yeah.
you agree that the stuff that you went through before, the grind that you put in employment, the one that you put in your magazine, led to who you are today.
Yep.
And a lot of people who watch the pod are very young, probably in their 20s. And I was watching Jill Scott, who's just released an album, and I'm telling you guys because I'm so excited. I love her, right? Yeah. But she also has wisdom, and she was talking about 20s is for your grind, right? 30s is for starting to figure out what it is that, you know, and really start zeroing in on that thing. 40s is now mastering this thing. 50s, you should have mastered. So there's steps to this. It shouldn't be at 20s, you're like, I'm going to quit everything and do something, because there needs to be a level of experience. You have to go through some stuff.
You do. And not to discourage anybody, but two things. The average age of people who set up successful startups, and I think that word startup gets misused. You're setting up a business. Everyone wants to call it a startup, and then for 10 years they're a startup founder. It's like, come on, you're a CEO. Just relax,
chill.
Right? Just relax. You're running a business. That's actually
10 years, startup CEO. Bro, that's wild.
But the average age of people who set up successful businesses is in their 40s. It's not in their 20s. It just gets glamorized, and has been glamorized because of the social media platforms and the people who've set those up, and because of TikTok, and because it's easy for a youth narrative to be put over business. They're super, super rare. Yes, in some countries where there's a young population, like in Saudi, and where there's a rich young population, they're successful. That's because they've got some money from somebody else. But I think that's super important to understand. And two, a lot of small businesses don't survive. The majority of small businesses don't survive. It takes, in my opinion, about 5 years of working your business for the world to understand what you're about, to remember that if they have a need that you solve for, to approach you, and also for you and the people around you to get what it's about. Yeah. It's not 6 months. And all this talk about sprints and working in agile ways, which I love, great. It still takes cycles, ups and downs, for you to make mistakes, for you to learn what you want to do more of, what you want to do less of. And then it starts to click, and then you never lock it in. You're still discovering, you're still learning. Yeah.
And discovery. I feel like a lot of people don't give themselves room for discovery.
Grace.
And grace, simply because, look, we're living in a country where there's massive joblessness, right? And then it's coupled with lack of capital.
Yeah, I know.
Right? And
skepticism towards banks.
Skepticism. There's just systems. So many things, you know? And so, but then you're still finding that the government is pushing towards, you know, like there was a Nyota fund that was launched. Kago, did you get your money? So there was Hustler Fund, which this Hustler Fund, yeah. Let it sink in. Hustler Fund, right? So there was that, and this was just basically loans that young people were going to get to start their businesses. We're talking about anything from 10,000 to like 100,000, and if you came together, CBOs and stuff. And then there's also this Nyota Fund. But my concern is when you give people money, and you've just talked about like how small businesses fail, right? It's almost like a setup, because the amount of people, if you're not coupling that with business knowledge, business acumen.
Yeah. Also, the thing that I've come across in Nigeria and here is there is a different culture around money. I'm going to talk gently, and you can correct me in case I misspeak.
No worries.
Semi-money culture, semi-M-Pesa, girlfriend allowance, slay queen, let alone money you have to pay to have things happen faster for you, or getting shaken down in various places like I did in Nigeria 7 times to get out of one airport.
No, that's for everyone.
Okay.
Yeah. I've been there 40 times.
So you could try to have a healthy attitude towards money, which a lot of people don't. You could think long-term, which most people don't. You could say you're going to work hard, which most people won't, according to the research that's coming out now. But there's still this structural and cultural stuff that's bubbling away. Can I say in Africa? Or would you say it's in Kenya and Nigeria? It's in Africa?
I would say, go ahead.
That is going to drag people down. And I know when I've spent time with people in other countries who've grown up with a poverty mindset, but they work hard, poverty mindset, poor family, they talk about like one ship has to float.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to cut people off. But I'm just hearing about this a lot. I don't want to misspeak. But for me, that would be like a real drag.
Black tax is a big thing. It's a huge thing. It's a cultural thing.
This is an additional one too, because that's where you send money back to your family, right?
Yes,
So
and that's where it starts from.
An additional one. Okay.
That's where it starts from. Because someone will tell you that they need money for, your parents are on your throat. They think you're in Nairobi making money, right? They don't know how difficult it is. Like I had to check someone the other day. They were complaining that someone wasn't trying to chip in on a project. And I'm like, they're in the city. Life is difficult, right? So when you look at that microcosm of it's pressure, and the pressure is not coming from you, right? It's like you don't live by yourself.
24/7, right?
You don't live by yourself. Yeah. You have cousins, you have siblings, you have, and maybe the parent has just said, it's your brother is your responsibility. He's on his way to Nairobi. What are you supposed to do, right? So you become so stretched out of your mind that all you can do is ask someone for money, right? It becomes sort of inculcated. Is it the right thing to do? No. But I feel like there are people who their issues are genuine, right? They genuinely need a bailout. It's an emergency. But then there are those ones who, especially last year, I learned a very difficult lesson. I'm not giving anybody money. I was telling my mom the other day, I'm like, fuck you and your problems. Because nobody returns money. Worse still, somebody who I've bailed you out like 7 or 10 times, right? I get into a situation where I can't be able to access money on my phone. I ask them for a short, just little, minimal, right? And then 2 days later, they were calling me off the hook saying, I need my money back. They've never returned anything I ever gave them. So that I noticed that I had a terrible culture around my own money, which was I hear your problem and I say, look, this is the last money for spending I have right now. I'm going to give it to you, right? Because I am prioritizing your problem. In my head, I've seen your problem, and that time it's quite not an emergency on your side. 2 years ago, someone asked me for money, emergency, and I was like, "Why? The way they're asking, I'm not even gonna get deep. Let me just." And then I see them traveling. They've gone to Ghana for DT December. I was just like, "What the actual fuck?"
Yeah. I've been around people and it's happened. I've had people approach me and like, if I don't know you and you talk to money, because I go to dangerous places. I'm not saying Kenya's dangerous. I go to dangerous places. If you cross one of my boundaries, it could end really badly for me. And one of my boundaries is don't talk to me about money, especially if I don't know you. And even if I do, unless you're buying something from me, don't bring it up.
Yeah.
Right. And because Kenya and Nigeria, I feel like there's a lot of people sort of sniffing around as well, especially if, you look a little bit like this. But the reason I wanted to bring it up was not because of my personal experience. It's just, it's easy for us to talk hypothetically about business, but there's a cultural drag here. Let's say you get one of these hustler loans and then you have a brother sent to you from another city. What are you going to do? And so I just think it's a cultural thing. I don't know how well discussed it is. I think it's a cultural thing that needs to be discussed because I would imagine it's adding drag or preventing people from going as fast as they could.
Absolutely.
That's where I'm coming from.
But then it becomes, I think at this point, the way, from my experience, what I tell young people who find themselves in such a situation is you have a decision to make, right? You have a decision to make because you cannot lift people while you're on your way up, right? You have to first get settled, right? Before you can be able to help. But you can't be helping while you yourself need help, right? What ends up happening in the long term is you're going to not make anything out of yourself. The people who you're trying to help, you probably end up in the same exact scenario. So you have a choice to make. Are you going to be tough and just say, for now, I need you all to bootstrap, figure your shit out. I can't help. Right? Because I've got to survive. I've got to move from survival mode to actually thriving so that I can be able to look back and say, all right, I can do this. But what's expected sometimes is that you've found your first job. Your parent is like, now you're the one who pays for everything in this house. And you will take it as a badge of honor. It's not a smart decision. It's you're pushed to a corner, but you have to make a decision because at the end of the day, you're the one who has to participate in this. And it's time of your life that's literally...
And the slightly intellectual concept that we were talking about is compound interest. Compound interest of money, compound interest of time. It was one of the first things that my granddad explained to me as a teenager. It was like, you need to save money because over time it will grow exponentially. But you can think about that as far as investment in relationships, in how you spend your days. So if I'm spending 80 hours a week working in my 20s, I want that to compound. Otherwise, I'm literally going to stay on the hamster wheel.
Yeah.
How do I make it compound? By making different decisions, by trying to create a business, by trying to create a brand, by trying to create things that can last and create their own momentum. So compound interest, I think, is the useful concept here.
Yeah. Services. I mean, you woke up and said, right, I've had ample years of perfecting this craft, and there are people out there who want to learn, and I'm going to carry myself and go around. Last year, you told me 40 cities,
40
talking
cities,
about your book, talking about your strategies, and this is strategy is your words, right? And the strategies fight for meaning. Looks deep, right? I mean, I sat with you for 2 hours, and you're really good at this, right? There are so many. I last year realized that because when I quit my radio job, one of the things was, what are you going to do now, right? So I'm already doing these things, but I'm a millennial. You're not doing enough, right? See, but one of the things that I asked ChatGPT, hey, what do you think I can do? And it was like, you need to do classes, right? There are people who pay for that. And I didn't take it seriously, completely. I was like, what?
Yeah.
What you say? Like, people can learn this thing from the internet. And then I came to understand that there's a value I give because of my experience.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
Totally.
And you've been traveling around the world talking to people about strategy. What has been your experience?
Well, everywhere's a little bit different. But look, I had a conversation with my team last week, and I was like, I want to redo our curriculum for Africa and Latin America because there's energy here, and there's like some 101 stuff, such as some of the stuff we've been talking about, that I think is so important that doesn't seem to be widely known. I'm like, I think I can make an impact with this. Yeah. So everywhere's a little bit different. You get some places that are conservative, some places that are not. For those of you who are unfamiliar with strategy and advertising, a strategist in advertising usually has the responsibility of doing research, of trying to understand what's happening in the world, what's happening with competitors of a brand, what's happening with culture, and also maybe the history of the company and what makes the product unique. And then they're usually in a big advertising agency working with a creative team to come up with a campaign that will sell a product in a relevant way to the audience. That's generally what a strategist does. Yeah. A little bit simple. So in different parts of the world, you get more provocative approaches to strategy, like Australians. We're quite provocative, which is why people pretend they like us in New York, but then they struggle with us because New York's actually quite conservative, despite what you think. The US is very conservative. And then there's also, I guess what I hear most is this word insight. So an insight to me is an unspoken human truth. Most songs will have some kind of insight that impact, I never thought about it like that way, but I've never thought about it like that before. I've never thought about relationships like that before. I never thought about my mental health like that before, my relationship with my parents, how I do business, right? So an insight to me is an unspoken human truth. And typically in advertising, not always, but typically we want them to be communicated because it's a great way of grabbing attention. First step, if you're building a brand, you get attention. And through an emotional interaction, you try to get into the memory. That's essentially what the role of advertising is about. Get attention, get into the memory so that later, when somebody's thinking about buying something you sell, maybe they think about buying from you. And so what I hear largely when it comes to insight around the world is everyone's outsourcing their thinking to ChatGPT. Yeah. According to a lot of research, and ChatGPT, et cetera, they're better than they were 2 years ago. But if everyone's doing it,
then you've got the same stuff.
You have the same stuff, and most of it's mediocre.
Yeah.
And then third, a lot of people are just gathering, in my industry, 50 slides of statistics and information with no point of view, no insight. And people who know what they're doing will see this and go, what's this? You just open up a deck, filled it in, send it off, and you think your job's done, and Slack notification goes off. So they're the main things that I see. Different attitude towards being provocative with the way you communicate through strategy. And then if there are insights versus just a lot of research that nobody cares about. And
nobody really cares about the research, because at the end of the day, you're speaking about provocative. I like what you're saying, because these are tenets that even... because I love that I started with media, and I've been able to use that, especially when Instagram and them was kicking off, and then you end up becoming like a content creator, which just naturally happened. I don't consider myself a content creator, but then with all this stuff, it's content. But when you think about the average person probably who hasn't worked in advertising, who, you know, is just creating content on their page, and there's a lot of them, and there's a short window of trending. Say, for example, you are making noise in CBD, and all of a sudden that your video goes viral.
Yeah.
Now you are in a conundrum, because now is where your journey of fame begins.
Yeah. Well, also your life might not change very much at all.
Yeah, exactly. And you know why your life would change? Because you have no strategy.
Yeah, there's no
what usually
no structure.
Exactly. So what ends up happening is this famous person, for that 6 months or 3 months, right? And this is good trajectory, energy, because there's somebody who's been doing their content. They're like, oh my God, if I could just get a bit of a push, I have the strategy. But this person who has the push doesn't have the strategy. So 2 days, you know, somebody's taking advantage of them, come do this activation here, and then that's it. Yeah. Right. And then there's that one who uses this opportunity, sits down, thinks about what the audience wants, figures out how to be able to communicate, that, you know, be provocative, get it out there, and consistent. Because on social media, one of the biggest challenges is how to be consistent without being boring. And
without burning out.
Yes. And without burning out. Right. So this all boils down to strategy. Right.
Yeah. It can. And you know, the things that I love right now when it comes to strategy, and I want to talk briefly about insights and how to write them so that people can make better content. But, you know, having lead magnets so that people will give you their email address or their WhatsApp phone number, maybe for a PDF or an ebook or a recipe, whatever you're selling, so that you can then follow up to sell to them. I think that's the simplest thing that people could look at. There's a tool called ManyChat. I know a lot of people can't afford subscriptions and stuff, but there's a tool called ManyChat that a lot of people use. You know, when it says comment X or DM X and I'll send you something back, a lot of people are using this tool ManyChat. It's one of my favorite tools. When it comes to writing, insights, you usually combine 2 topics in a sentence. I'll give you an example from Nigeria, and I'm curious to see how you would respond to this with a Kenyan one. So when I was in Nigeria, people told me topic A is Nigeria. Topic B is what I'm about to say. They told me Nigeria is Africa on cocaine. Topic A, Nigeria. Topic B, Africa on cocaine. Those 2 things coming together, it's like, oh, I'd never thought about it like that before. What does that mean? Right. And so having been there a few times, now I understand, or been to 2 cities there, now I understand what it means. What would you say about Kenya, to put you on the spot?
I feel like Kenya is Africa on steroids.
Okay.
Yeah. Because so Lagos, Nigeria offers numbers, massive numbers. I mean, you're looking for anything you'll find in Nigeria, numbers. But I feel like Kenya is much more world-facing. Anyone in the world can be able to enjoy Africa here, right? Nigeria is not for beginners.
It's true. So even that as a sentence, just because we're demonstrating writing structures, Nigeria is not for beginners.
And I love it. Right? And I love Nigeria. The first time I traveled to Ghana, I said, I wrote in my diary, I'm finally in Africa. I know, right? Because Africa, I mean, Kenya people look like they could be from anywhere, right? People dress however, but there you can see the kente more than you can see, you know, other print. And so it was just like, wow, I feel like I'm in Africa. The foods in the restaurant were so home foods. Here, our restaurants mostly, this is in the past 20 years where there's been a boom of like local foods. Like you can eat fish now, you can walk to, but before, there was like chips and chicken joints. I'm not playing.
No.
Chips and chicken joints, right? and then international restaurants, right? If you want to eat traditional food, you go home, bitch. Or you go to a kiosk on the side of the road, right? The kibandaskis. So it didn't feel like Africa. Like me, who's an African, traveled to an African city and went like, damn, I'm in Africa now.
But so just for those of you creating content around, like let's say you're working in tourism.
Yeah.
This conversation is useful because you can think about how do I position Kenya against Nigeria, right? Now, if you're working with makeup or hair or you're a driver or whatever you're doing, you want to have these sorts of conversations to get at unusual truths because when you put them in your communication, people will look at it and go, oh, I'd never thought about that topic like that before. And that's step 1 to getting their attention, hopefully getting into their memory, and also getting them to contact you if you're selling services. So this is exactly the sort of conversation you want to have if you're running a small business and you want to stand out a little bit more.
You have to position, and then there has to be the reason why you're doing this, the because.
The because, yeah, but just with the position, lead with a hot take. I just think people's attention spans, they're terrible right now. Either you're getting people's attention or everyone's ignoring you. And according to some research I've seen, when they looked at 30,000 ads, 85% of the ads were being ignored, which means most people are ignoring most things. So if you're running a little business and you're trying to communicate better, lead with a hot take. Something you know about the people you're selling to that they don't know, that when they know it, they're like, damn, I got to talk to this person.
Yeah.
Right?
Love that. Love that. Mark, it's been amazing having you here in Nairobi. This is the second time I'm meeting you, and I'm going to get my book.
I'll send one.
Strategy is your words.
Good.
And it does look good. I like the way it's colors. Who designed it for you? I like it.
Yeah, that's my handwriting. And then I have, my friend was one of the main album designers of hip hop music in Australia. So he and his wife helped put it together, yeah.
You know, when you said about the hook, I realized that it's very important that you try as many things when you're young, right? Because that hook came from his radio days, right? Leading with the pegging, having a hook. People don't listen to you unless you start with something, what? Yeah. And then now they listen, right? So I also find I use the same because of being in radio. And it really just boils down to saying, don't be afraid to try many, many things, even things that just don't seem like they're connected to. But if you have an interest in it, because you never know how they will come together into a nice bowl.
Dude, can I just say, just from a content point of view, my worst content performs the best, and it's so frustrating. I could publish a video or a carousel that I've thought about for 10 years, or I could just film myself not getting access to Chile in South America because I used ChatGPT to ask if I needed a visa, and it said no, but I did. Yeah. And that thing had like 20 million views and went on French news.
Wow.
It went viral on Twitter, and I didn't even post it on Twitter. Did that virality help me? I don't know. It gave me a story to tell.
No, virality is important if you know how to use it. Yeah. And one takeaway before you go, you've given us one app that we're going to use. What other AI tools are you currently using?
It's a tough one because AI is kind of built into everything. Like I use Meta Ads Manager for our paid advertising. AI is built into that. CapCut, I use AI in that for the for the translations, etc. So it's hard to say which AI tools. I do use ChatGPT quite a lot. I use it to discuss my writing with. I don't get it to write for me.
Yeah.
I use it to discuss my business. I get it to analyze some of my content. I'm a writer. I have to write. It's useful there. Suno for music has been super interesting. I've written like 40 songs since June, since I had a breakthrough in Colombia. Yeah. And Suno, I thought I'd hate it. I'm a music guy. I used to have like 5,000 records. I used to distribute music. I was a purist. Yeah. 4 elements of hip hop, vinyl and cassette. And then I'm like, oh, this is actually quite useful to quickly sketch ideas. True. So I'll write a lyric and then I'll probably make sometimes like 100 to 200 versions of it, and I'll keep 1 or 2. So that's been pretty good. They're the main AI specific tools that I use.
I like that. Guys, you can see the reason I was asking that question is that I wanted to hear if there's a strategist who's not using AI. There's somebody I sat with last week and they told me that they only have ChatGPT. And I just said, my guy, you need to start embracing. So he'll be on CapCut, for example, and not use the AI tool. Canva, he'll not use the AI tool. There's a lot of people who are ignoring AI because they think that they can still manage without it. But I feel like it's making work much easier if you know how to use the tools.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to end it here. Are you coming back to Nairobi with a strategy class? Because I missed the last one.
Yeah, I would like to. I've been, my Kenyan friends, I've had a lot of strange interactions. I'm the common denominator. I hope you let me back in. I've misunderstood a lot of interactions. I told you about my boundaries, and some of those boundaries get collapsed when I travel, and it's a great way to learn. But hopefully I will come back. We had about 110 people come to the Kofisi Center last time. So I know there's a lot of energy here for it. I'm trying to work out how to get a little bit more connected to the creative communities here as well. I know the way that I present when I travel, they can be like an echo of colonialism, but I'm legitimately interested in local communities to the point where I ask myself, would I have a base here? Colombia and Kenya, could they be my 2 places in the future? I'm giving you a little bit of a speech, but yes, I'd like to come back.
All right. I love it. Guys, I hope you've learned a thing or two. As we start the year, the idea, I invited Mark here because I was like, let's get some information, a few things you can learn to input so that make this year a greater year. By the time you get to the end of the year, you need to be able to see a bit of progress, right? And I hope that the things we've spoken about can be able to make you create a good strategy for a winning plan for 2026. Ama, kapow.
Kapow.